Woo, baby. Welcome back to Philly Insider Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. What a game. I got Evan with me. I have Nate with me. And gentlemen, one way or another, I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but invested was definitely the right word based on the reactions in the group chat. This game was us pretty much leading until like the fourth quarter, and then everyone started to smell it. Evan, I forget if it's you or Rossi who said it. Maybe it was Thomas, but somebody said it. Incoming choke?
That was, yeah.
Sure enough. We blow, what was it? I think a 9-point lead?
Yeah. I mean, the highest it was, 17, almost
16, yeah.
Something like that.
Point being,
crazy.
We start blowing the lead chunk by chunk, Tatum shot by Tatum shot. Malcolm Brogdon 3. Malcolm Brogdon has taken a spot on my most hated players list.
Absolutely.
It was insane to see the end to this game because we saw the choke. The choke happened, but something that doesn't usually happen happened after the choke, which is we came back. Well, we is putting it strongly. It's more accurate to say that James Harden came back. But point being, the Sixers come out with a dub after choking the lead. And don't get me wrong, technically we still got a dagger 3 hit on us with like 4 seconds left. But thankfully there were only 3 seconds left on the shot in the clock. So, doesn't count.
Imagine that goes in. Oh my God.
The worst part was I saw it happening in my head. As I saw Marcus Smart getting the ball, I was like, this is going in. And
that was about to be like the Bellinelli 3 from a few years ago.
Man,
hit that shot.
This is another point we'll get into later. There was some ball today. But boys, first general reactions. Nate, start us off, man. Give me the little bit of the I gave you the game to game my reaction. Talk about how you're feeling after seeing that walk-off Harden 3 ever.
I mean, a win's a win. We'll take it. But my goodness, are we not a fourth quarter team? We need to fix that. Everybody just decided to not play in that quarter. Our defense is horrible. We'd wait down the shot clock to about 2 seconds and then hit a really contested fadeaway 2-jumper and miss completely. I don't know what Doc was doing in those timeouts, but half the time it wasn't anything he drew up. So we just really need to get that together. I liked what I saw from the first 3 quarters. That was really good basketball. That's when Harden's on, when Embiid's on, we looked solid. But then that fourth quarter, it just kind of all fell apart. So nervous for that. I'm happy we got the win, but going back into Boston, it's going to be really tough to maintain a lead and then keep that lead. It's almost like coming from behind will be better for us in the next game.
Evan, my man, that was you said it when you first got on before we even started the live. My man was angry. Evan was angry.
Oh gosh, yeah. I'm a professional hater when it comes to. I'll hate on anybody. I don't care who it is. If it was my brother shooting a shot, I'd still say he sucks. But I don't know. It was honestly, the first half was great. It was great. I mean, there were some points here and there where we just forgot how to play defense. We were just letting them get easy layups. It was almost as if we would hit a 3 or have a nice hard fought 2 points, and then we just let go of White in the corner. No one's guarding White, and then Horford gets turns into Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and blocks Embiid on every shot and does insane shots. But like Nate said, a win's a win. It's not a pretty one, but it kind of hurts seeing a team fold like the Sixers in the fourth quarter when you're up by that much.
And yeah, boys, and a big part of that, it has to be said, was in the fourth quarter, nobody aside from James Harden basically showed up. Now I'm going to read out a few stat lines to you guys, and then we'll kind of get into some of the Sixers players. And first, I'm going to give the stat line. So first off, I want to say Embiid, while he did choke in the fourth, he redeemed himself a little bit with his performance in overtime. And it has to be said, even when he was choking offensively, he was still anchoring defensively.
Yep.
So he had on the day 34 points, 13 rebounds, 4 assists. That's pretty much 30 and 10 is about what you need from Embiid in this series every night. Yep. Not too much to complain there, aside from him literally letting Horford eat his lunch money.
Yeah.
That man I don't think I've ever seen Embiid look so scared in that fourth quarter.
No. he's played better against Giannis, and that's
Mhm.
what
Yeah,
I'm confused about. And Al Horford. And the funny thing is, years back we went and got Al Horford for the purpose of guarding Giannis,
Yeah.
and he didn't guard Giannis, but he can guard Embiid pretty well. So
for whatever reason.
that's crazy.
Man, and you talk about Horford also hitting the dunk, hitting those threes, man. We'll get into the Celtics, who are honestly, they have too many starter caliber players. But let's continue with the Sixers players for now. James Harden led the way tonight with 42, 8 rebounds, 9 assists. You couldn't have asked anything more from Harden, in my opinion. He was doing literally everything for this team down the fourth quarter stretch and overtime. So, gentlemen, I just want your quick reactions to James Harden. Evan, I'm going to have you go back to back. Talk to me about what you saw from him tonight.
I thought Harden had a really great game, especially after that last game where he just forgot how to play basketball, I guess, and was just turning the ball over constantly. I thought it was a pretty good comeback game. Like he's not known to be a good player when it comes to the playoffs, and that shot at the end was just like that. Maybe he's not so bad, but then we'll see next game. Honestly, I'll save my reaction for him for next game. We'll see how Harden shows up. Any less than 25 points, you're gonna need almost 25 from him the rest of the series.
Man, somehow, and I said in the group chat, I saw both you boys liked it. Somehow Harden has the 2 best games and the 2 worst games of this series.
Yeah.
In 4 games. And Nate, talk to me, man. James had himself a night.
He did. I mean, obviously, offensively, he had an amazing night. But I also want to talk about his defense. He actually did a lot better defensively. He had 4 steals this game, which I think just shows that he maybe put in a little bit more effort than last game. Maybe his heart's into it more. I don't know. Harden's a very tough player to understand, because he's not like Embiid, where he was brought up, trust the process, or Maxey, or these guys that were brought up in the Sixers. He came on, last minute, and some question if his heart's really in it. But I mean, first game he was definitely in it, and this game definitely. So I think he really needs to play, emotionally, which sometimes isn't great. But I think when someone calls out Harden for being at a strip club the day before a game, he gets pissed off and drops 45. So somebody call him out again for next game, and that'd be great. But yeah, I really liked what I saw from him. He wasn't afraid to take shots. Usually when him and Embiid are around, he's kind of like feeding other players. But today he was confident, and I liked what I saw from him, both offensively and defensively.
He realized he needed to take the lead tonight, and he did it in a big way.
Yeah.
Now we're going to kind of get into – first, I want to put these players on kind of like the back burner, because they don't have great stat lines, but I don't think there's much to discuss for them either. And these guys being PJ Tucker, 6 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. I think PJ did his role player job today in terms of defense, hustle boards, like key plays. I think he did his job. I don't think you can expect too much more from him. And this one's a bit more controversial, but DeAnthony Melton, no points, but that man was guarding Tatum all night tonight. He was a big reason that Tatum didn't go off for even more points. Through the first 3 quarters, he's a big reason that Tatum was basically a non-factor. Like, Melton was doing everything he could on the defensive end. I kind of understand why he struggled tonight offensively. And then we go over to Georges Niang on my last note of like players to kind of put on the back burner, because he hit 3 threes, played like meh on the defensive side, which is honestly a good plus for him. If he's meh, that's a good plus.
Yeah.
So like, I don't really, for Niang, Melton, and Tucker, I don't really have much to say on those guys. I just want to like say they did their role player jobs. Paul played backup minutes. Cool. Do you gentlemen have anything you want to say on any of those guys before we kind of transition to 2 names who I think need to be talked about?
I think one thing for DeAnthony Melton, while he was, doing better on Tatum, you look back to game 1, Tatum got 39 and we still won. Melton had, I think, like 18 points that game. So his defense wasn't there, but offensively we needed it. And so I think regardless of if Melton plays stellar defense, he needs to get the ball moving offensively. And he was a non-factor today on that side, which I get it. If you're focusing on just containing, Tatum, you're not going to focus on taking good shots. But I mean, that first game, he was like a plus, I don't know, like +8 or something. I don't know. But, I think he needs to get a little bit more involved in the offense, because, I mean, we'll talk about it later, but there were a few people that did not step up. And if no one's going to step up, Melton surprisingly needs to be that third scorer.
Evan,
Yeah,
anything
I,
else?
I agree, Nate, and I know who you meant. I know Tobias Harris, but
Yeah.
um, just like the fact that you might have a lineup where you have Melton, Tucker, Harris, even Maxi in there. Maxi did struggle.
Mhm.
That leaves you with one player who's having a good game. I mean, granted, yes, Melton did play a fantastic game on defense. He couldn't lay up the ball. He couldn't make an easy layup.
He did chuck that
I mean
wide.
that's only a small little part of it. But I mean, having Tucker, Maxi, Melton, Harris on the court at the same time, all having a bad game, that's not going to be going well offensively. It could go well defensively, but sometimes you just won't be able to stop the Celtics. And maybe it could have been a fatigue factor or whatever it may have been. But I mean, Embiid played 46 minutes, which is a lot, especially on that
Yeah.
knee. Harris played 45 minutes. I mean, all those guys are burnt out. I get
Yeah.
it, but I mean, I wish they just could have had a better first half when they had those shots.
Hey, man, you guys kind of mentioned, Evan, you said both their names, so let's get to them. Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey had a rough game today. And I want to start with Toby because I think he's the one I'm more likely to forgive because when I talked about Melton giving his all on the defensive end, Toby was on Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum every minute he was in the game, doing everything he could to slow those guys down. He had 9 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists. Was that the efficiency of near 20 points we usually need from Toby? No. But he was working his butt off on the defensive side. It was definitely a bad game from him, let's be clear. But look, I have less to say on Toby and a lot more to say on Maxey. Because even though Maxey's stat line looks a little better, 14 points, 8 rebounds, 1 assist, he was getting picked on defensively. And he had most of his points early, by the way. Did he have 2 buckets in over? I think he had 2 layups in overtime, which should be noted. That's credit to him. But that means for an entire, how many minutes did he play? 45 minutes. So for 40 minutes, he didn't play in overtime. He had 10 points. And he was nowhere to be found in the fourth quarter stretch at all. This dude was getting blocked all over the place. He continues to struggle with weak side blocks. He just can't. You can't see the passing lane. So defenders know they can just go straight for the ball. They don't have to worry about cutting off a passing lane. He had a rough game, to say the least, offensively. And defensively, everyone knows he's getting picked on. They pick and rolled him to death in that fourth quarter, making sure that Tatum had him as the matchup every single time. So Embiid had to come over and help. And there was an open 3 ball on almost every single play. So we'll pair these 2 player discussions together, Harris and Maxey. I think there's less to be said for Harris, more to be said for Maxey. Evan, start us off, my man. What do you think?
Man, I mean, Maxey, I don't necessarily think he had an awful game, but I mean, his defense is a little underrated, but he can get picked on at times by players like Jaylen Brown if he gets. I mean, he was matched up with Tatum a lot today, to be honest. And I think his game offensively, it's just a different game that I guess he's used to having. Especially, he's used to being that primary ball handler, whereas James Harden was down the stretch doing himself. So, I mean, I don't like when he goes up and goes up for layups when he sees that there's 2 7-foot guys right there because you try every time and it's just Maxey's going to get blocked. And I don't know. I don't want to pick on him too much because I love Maxey, but he definitely needs to step up. Same thing with Harris. I mean, I don't love Harris, but I don't think he's absolutely awful. His defense for the last 2 playoff series has been actually pretty good. And even last year, he had a pretty good run last year on the defensive side. But we do need the 20 points from him too, and the bench. And Celsius, sponsor us. I just want to make sure you guys don't think I was drinking on the job.
All right. Nate, my man, I know you are a big Maxey fan, but tell me the truth, brother. He had it rough tonight.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm not a Tobias fan and I'm a Tyrese fan, but I'm going to let them both off the hook here. I don't think it was so much their performances, more so than our play style. I did not like how we played today. If you look at comparison of game 1, which we won, and then this game, it completely changes. And that's Joel Embiid coming back, obviously. But I think we can't sacrifice good defense and completely throw away our offensive game. Because while defense is good, defensive teams don't win anymore in this league. Basketball is becoming just an offensive craziness. And that first game we played against the Celtics, I'm sure we played good defense. Jason Tatum was shooting 60 or 70% field goal percentage. Like there's no defense that'll protect that. Tatum had a bad shooting day today, and tomorrow he could have a great shooting performance, even if our defense is on. So I think we need to stop focusing on trying to clamp up Tatum as much and start just getting our offense going in the fourth quarter and not depending on just Joel and Harden. I mean, Joel and Harden accounted for 76 points out of our 116. That's 40 points for Tucker, Tobias, Tyrese, Niang, Melton, whoever else came in, and like you just can't have that. And so I think Maxey and Tobias need to get that offense moving. I don't care if Tobias clamps up Jason Tatum. He still put up 24 points. Meanwhile, Brogdon, Smart, and Al Horford are putting up 15 to 20 points, and where it's a 1-point game. So I think this next game we need to change up our mentality. You let Embiid do his thing. Hopefully Harden stays hot, but don't sacrifice Tyrese's amazing electrifying, shooting, or Tobias's really weird shots that he somehow manages to make when it doesn't matter. Let them do that and not, cripple their performance by their defensive playing. That's all I got to say. They needed to step up, but yeah, that's all I'm going to say.
Fair enough. I will get a bit more on Maxey and Tobias briefly, just in terms of for Tobias, like we've been saying, we need a little bit more points wise from him. He has to kind of step up and be that sometimes third option, especially if Maxey gets cold feet down the stretch, because, he is still a young guy. He is still, I want to give Maxey some grace in that he is still, we forget that he's third year in the league. Like,
he's
not a vet by any means. He's still coming up in this. He's like, this is his third. No, he's been in the playoffs every year, but this is, I think, his second year being a key part of the team and being like really heavy in the rotation. He's still getting used to this, but down the stretch in big moments, he just doesn't seem to schematically get it. His lack of ability to develop a passing game, to me, is really what's stunting his growth, ironically, as a scorer right now. Because we've seen how talented Maxey is scoring the ball. I don't think anybody debates that. He's a walking, if he's really on, he can get you those 30 to 40 points any given night. I don't think anybody debates that. But he's now reaching this stretch in the game where against these really advanced defensive teams at this stage in the playoffs, where you're not getting these light touch fouls, where he needs to find another level, where it can't just be dash and transition and get layups, which he'll get like 3 to 4. We'll get like 4 to 6 points off a game. But like, you need to be able to do more in a half court set, be able to hit his open threes and mid-range shots, which he missed a good bit of tonight, which he normally makes. I'll give him credit for that. He had a rough night shooting. But the big thing that gets me is just when he goes into that paint, man, it's layup or bust. Like, it's finish or bust. He really is not considering the passing lane at all anymore. And the Celtics are abusing that. Because none of the weak side defenders are even bothering to look to see if there's an open three on the other side. They're just seeing Maxey jump in the air and they're being, well, he's not passing, and just leaping on the side. Hence what you said, Evan. They're constantly seeming to be 2 7-foot guys in the paint, jumping every time Maxey jumps.
Yep.
So to me, he needs to, if he's not going to develop his passing any further, they can't have him keep playing offense the way he has in these playoffs. Because what worked in the regular season is not going to fly now that we're down to the gritty half-court offense of these playoffs. And boys, with that being said, I think we've talked about most of the Sixers. I want to kind of transition us to the other team of this game who was giving us mad buckets. And it has to be said, they had a very balanced game today. They had, let me see if I'm reading this right, 6 players in double digits. Just to read these fast. Jason Tatum, 24 points. Jaylen Brown, 23 points. Al Horford, 10 points. Marcus Smart, 21 points. Derek White, 12 points. Malcolm Brogdon, the bane of my existence, 19 points. Man, the Celtics, every single one of them was getting going tonight. And defensively, Evan, you mentioned it. Nate, I heard you say it a little bit too. This was not working tonight. This was just not. We were giving up open threes in every way. Part of that, again, is when Maxey gets targeted in the pick and roll and they switch him on to Tatum or Brown. There's just nothing you can do. He's going to get beat one-on-one in that situation. Somebody's going to have to help. Somebody's going to have to come open. Is there any solution to this? Is it more zone? Is it trying to maybe decrease the help and just taking your chances with Maxey in the one-on-one? Do you boys think there's a solution to this? Or Nate, you proposed the idea earlier. Is it just time to run and gun? To just have your offense be your defense and just play it up like that? Nate, let's have you lead with this because you addressed this a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I mean, dog's barking. I'll start off just saying I think the main reason why the Celtics are a better team than us is because they have a voice. I remember they did a little listen-in between the Celtics coach and Doc Rivers during the crunch time, and I was like, "What the heck is Doc saying? Just gotta keep it together," or something like that. And the boss is like, "We're almost there. We got this, guy. Just keep pushing." I'm like, if I'm on the Sixers, I'm like, I don't care. If I'm on the Celtics, I'm like, I'm gonna run a marathon for this guy. So I think the thing is they have a voice, they have a leader, and we don't have that. Like Doc's not gonna get in Tyrese's face and say, "Dude, you are an insane player. Do what you do best. Don't worry about the embarrassment. Don't worry about you have confidence, you have skill. Keep pushing. Be a playmaker. Be the Tyrese Maxey that you are. Don't be afraid that it's the playoffs or it's the Celtics. Nobody's gonna get in Maxey's face now." Jimmy Butler would have done that, but we won't get into that.
PJ another getting up in guys' faces today.
Okay, I will say I did like what I saw from PJ, but I mean, a guy that scores 6 points is not going to inspire anyone to go. Like he's a good guy, but he's just not a leader. Like if Joel had the dog in him, like Jimmy, it would be insane. Like he'd be the best player by far. So yeah, I think Sanjay, I'll be honest, I think it's just we need to run the table here. We need to just play offense. Like obviously there's defense involved, but you saw that we did that today and we won by 1 point, And I think the Celtics' probably biggest mistake they've made this series is not letting Mike Muscala start. I mean, that guy is absolute dog, He put up 40 points to win that series. So I'd like to see the Sixers against the Celtics to not – because, I mean, look at the stat line today. Jason Tatum got silenced and they still had 4 or 5 guys in double digits. Like, you can quiet one guy. They have such a good depth. It's crazy. Yeah, they have such a good depth that you can silence one guy and someone else will step up. So stop focusing on that and start focusing on making sure we are putting the ball into the basket. So, yeah, that's my little mini rant. I had to throw in a Jimmy Butler jib there because I'm still salty about that. But
fair enough.
Yeah, Nate, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree with that. And really, it's nothing that I've looked at too much when it comes to like Sixers, because I feel like we've been such a defensive oriented team the last, say, like 3-4 years before the Kawhi, or like even when we got the Kawhi shot hit on us. We were a defensive minded team. Jimmy Butler, Embiid. I mean, if Joel Embiid doesn't play this series, obviously it's wraps, and you're probably losing in 4 or 5 rather. But his presence defensively was just so big. I definitely agree. I think some of the guys should tone it down a little bit on defense. It sounds so crazy to say, but I mean, you need Joel there for that paint presence, obviously.
Yeah.
But I just think it was a fatigue thing with the team today. They just played so hard on defense in the first half, and they were just so tired in the second half. Sometimes you just got to run and gun. You have the star power on this team. You have more star power than the Celtics do. They might be a deeper team. But obviously, they're a deeper team. Yeah. But Embiid is better than Tatum. And come on.
I would argue. I think Embiid and Harden is definitely a better player than Brown and Tatum. I can give that.
Yeah, and it really comes down to that. I mean, if we're shooting down good down the stretch, maybe you will tone it down a little bit on defense, or it just depends on the game. And Doc Rivers, like Nate said, they're penning on to Doc Rivers, and he's just giving out he's not really just giving out motivational speeches. He's just saying like, "Oh, guys, let's just keep doing what we're doing. We just blew up 15 points. What are we talking about?" Like, if you call a 30-second timeout, you're supposed to be showing them plays you're going to run. Like, this is like if Nick Sirianni called a timeout and just says, "Okay, guys, good job. Well, let's just keep doing what we're doing. We just gave up 2 touchdowns. Just keep doing." No, you got to write up plays. You got to tell the players what to do. And Embiid needs to talk. I know you haven't played in 2 weeks, and you can't talk because you can't breathe. And he's like, he can't breathe. That's why he's not being a leader. I feel like he's just not. He is a leader, but he can't talk because he's not in great shape. I think that's it too. It sounds stupid.
I'll say I definitely hear both you gents. When it comes to like the defense versus offense in the NBA in general, the offense tends to win. I'll be kind and say the offense 70% of the time. I'm probably being kind with that percentage right there. But I still think we need some defense. I just think the way we're doing it needs to change. Because Nate, you talked about a reference to game one. I'll reference something which I said in the game one preview I did. The Celtics are going full ball movement offense. I don't think there is any way to stop them. I just think you have to hope they miss shots. But there is one way they've kind of fallen out of that, which we saw them fall out of it in game one. And it didn't really happen today, but where you do a zone and you kind of bait their stars, namely Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, into getting into the paint and not making these outlet passes, but instead taking these difficult contested finishes at the rim, mid-range shots, forcing them to make tough step backs. Make the stars do everything. Make them work. Don't let them spread the ball out. And just kind of bait them into more isolation and less ball movement that way. To me, that's a big part of why we won game one. And I haven't really seen it since. It's been more man coverage. With Embiid back, it's a lot of help defense, which, as we've seen, when Maxey is on the court, is inevitably going to lead to an open three. That's just not going to work. So I think things do. And we went into the zone for a little bit. When Embiid was off the floor, we went into the zone a little bit. But I think Embiid can play in his zone too. In fact, I think he'd be at his best there because you see him. He's ready to challenge everybody in the paint, even with that bum knee. If you let him just operate within that painted area and say, all right, the rest of the guys are running a zone at the three-point line, we have fast wing players. They might not be the tallest guys, but you can't tell me Maxey's speed can't let him at least close out for a contest on a three. To me, there is a chance for us to do something defensively if we go to a bit more of a zone scheme and less of a man scheme. I think as long as we're in a man scheme, we're asking to be beat because that's just it's just not going to work as long as we have Maxey in the lineup. And gentlemen, a couple game-wide stats for you now. We've taken it in specific to the Celtics. We took it in specific to the Celtics. Some game-wide stats I want you boys to hear and then just give a general reaction to. Field goal percentage, we shot about the same. Celtics got 47. We got 46. Three-point percentage, we also held about the same. 38. Celtics got like 0.4 percentage on us if you really want to be like nitpicky about it. Then from there, the free throws, boys. And the free throws weren't as bad for us. The Celtics missed more free throws than we did. But still, 86.
How many attempts was that?
We both had 22. But the Celtics made 16 for a 73% free throw rate, while we made 19 for an 86% free throw rate. It's not bad from us. But, whenever we went to OT, because we wouldn't have gone to OT if we had one more of those free throws over there. So, just that's always something to think about is you can always execute better from the line. They are free points for a reason. Offensive rebounds, dead tied. Offensive rebounds, also pretty much dead tied. The Celtics got 13. We got 12. And then here's a big thing to me, though, the assists. Because the Celtics had 25 assists. Their ball movement was going, and we only had 19 because it was mostly Harden saving our butts down the end. But this is a big point I have to make, which I want your boys' reaction to. Because I saw this, and I was like, what? 12 blocks for the Celtics. What do you boys think it is? Do you think what's wrong with our paint offense that we're letting 12 blocks up? Is it just what Embiid did in the fourth quarter choking? Is it just Maxey not reading the weak side? Because 12 blocks is a lot, boys. Like that's not just you made a couple mistakes. You're doing something wrong in the paint with 12 blocks.
And you keep doing it. I think that's what it is too. Embiid, I think Embiid had to get blocked at least 3-4 times from Horford in the fourth quarter alone. It just might be how our play style is. I mean, you don't have the ball in Maxey's hand, which I would love it to be in his hand. Maybe not in the fourth quarter, but let him run, let him have those runs, and then dish out to Harden, Harris, Melton in the corner. But I mean, whatever. I just don't love that offense that we're playing. We do have two great ISO players with Embiid and Harden, and it's almost as if they're just too close together all the time. And I mean, their pick and roll is good, but I mean, they're not a pick and roll duo. They really aren't, and they have to be. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But I mean, one thing I did want to bring up, it really did look like we did not get as much rebounds as the Celtics did. I was almost every time Horford or Grant Williams, and who else? Robert Williams
Robert Williams.
was. I feel like he got every single offensive board. I just felt like I think that's why the assists were like kind of different too, because they were getting those offensive boards thrown to the guy in the corner. No one's getting 3-point easy. Like that happened at least 3-4 times during the game. But that is a pretty crazy stat though.
Fair. And you know what? You talked about it, Harden and Embiid, not really the traditional pick and roll duo in terms of they play out of it, but it's more a pick and pop duo.
Yeah.
Embiid doesn't really roll hard to the rim.
Mhm.
He tends to like stop in that free throw area. He fakes the roll sometimes and like stops in the free throw and just takes his mid range.
So weird.
Which I'm kind of okay with, but I wish he'd roll every once in a while just to make it like believable at least that he'll ever roll. I don't think I can in recent memory in this series ever remember him just rolling hard to the rim. Nate, what were your reactions to like some of those general stats I just read out there?
I mean, yeah, you and Evan are right. I mean, Harden and Embiid are phenomenal players in their own, but our system does not allow them to really thrive unless they're hitting like 70% from the three or something like that, like Harden was, unless we get really lucky. A regular game, 9 out of 10 times, probably not going to work out. And so I'm going to say this, and this is going to be a hard thing to take for Sixers fans. Doesn't matter who we sign next year, who replaces Embiid, as long as we do not adjust and make changes in the game, we're never going to win a championship. Doesn't matter if we bring in Jimmy Butler and Jason Tatum in or something like that. If we don't adjust, we're never going to win, because that first half was great basketball from us. We were good offensively, good defensively. The Celtics didn't know what hit them. That's why we had a 16-point lead at some point then. Then I'll tell you what happened in the locker rooms. The Celtics come in and said, all right, they're doing a lot of this. We're going to start to crowd the middle. We're going to watch Maxey on the right there. We're going to make sure to keep up our pressure on Embiid, cause them to make missed shots or bad shots. You know what Doc Rivers probably said? Good stuff, guys. Keep it up, just like that. So we come into the third and fourth quarter, and they're catching up to us. Then they pass us, and then we're playing catch up with like no time to make adjustments. So I think this is just and it's easy to just insult Doc Rivers, but the dude does nothing. Like he does not adjust, and that's why this always happens. And then it's nail biting to the end of the game, because it's who's going to get lucky and hit a shot in the last few moments of the game. We have to acknowledge we don't have a clutch player, so we cannot expect to just sit around in the second half, playing off our win and hoping the time ticks down to 0. We have to make sure we stay fresh. We adapt. Maybe we do a little weird pick and stop and roll or whatever it is that we have in the first half, and then we switch it up. You can't keep doing the same thing and accept a team not to bite. So that's why they had 12 blocks in us, because they knew exactly what we were going to do. When Maxey had the ball, he was probably going in for a layup, and that's an easy block. When Embiid had the ball with 2 seconds left in the shot clock, they knew he was going for it. That's an easy block. Like it seemed like we didn't have a plan in that second half after they started reading us, and it was just like, oh, well, 2 seconds, we waste 15 seconds of the shot clock, and then it's scrambling to make a good shot. Thank goodness James Harden actually hit some of those, but it's like you have to make these halftime adjustments even if you're winning. You can't just sit around and expect the other team to just roll over and die, especially in the playoffs. And if we make it to the Eastern Conference Championship, you better know for sure that Jimmy Butler is not going to sit around and die each game if he's down 30 points at the half or 2, So whether we win this series and move on, this is something that's going to keep up with us, and we have to adjust. And I sure hope Doc Rivers looks at this game and says, man, we've got to think of more than one strategy at the start of a game and stick with it. So that's what I got to say. I mean, obviously, the players didn't have the greatest, playmaking ideas, which allowed an easy block. Some of those blocks probably were fouled, but you can't just depend on a foul to win the game. Now, Joel Embiid can, but he's different, So that's my 2 cents. I think we need to adjust at the second half, regardless of winning or losing. There has to be adjustment. There has to be some sort of backup plan B or C that they already know about, so that they're not scrambling in the fourth quarter to survive to overtime and then win by 1 point.
Agreed. And that's a very good point you make about, I guess, predictability. Because a lot of times when it comes to the regular season, people don't really do much in terms of adjustments because there's just not time for it. Like at halftime, you're like, whatever, we have another game tomorrow, another game in 2 days. In a series, a playoff series, those adjustments are so key because they're everything to grabbing momentum, to shifting the series on its head. You look at film, you see what can we do different. You look at the actions from which you've seen in the first half, and you're like, oh, which one of these did we struggle with? Which one of these did we defend well? What can we do better? That's a huge factor in the playoffs because a lot of the playoffs is half-court sets and it's less transition, which means when you do those kind of things, you read the actions, you think, oh, these are the sets the other team is running out of. These are the sets we should be running out of. Those have big impacts in a half-court game like the playoffs tend to be. So the coaching point is a fair one.
We did that in game one. I'm sorry, Sanjay. I was going to say we did that in game one. We actually read the Celtics. We saw that we were forcing Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to make shots, and eventually they're not going to be hitting 90% from the three. So we keep forcing them to take these shots, and then we won. So we did that in the first game, but then we just completely forgot how to do that the next two, you know? So get it together, Doc.
And I do want to briefly touch on this, boys, because I'm not a big ref ball guy. I think ref ball is a part of the game. I don't think you should cry too much about it because if you were in a position to be screwed over by ref ball, that means you already messed up. That's on you. But man, there were some key moments in this game where I was just like, what's happening here? There were a couple blatant offensive fouls by the Celtics. The one everybody's going to remember is Jason Tatum literally, like, he didn't extend his forearm. I think that's the argument a lot of people are making. But he extended his shoulder, which I think is still legally called as a push-off, where he went like that and like full like chicken winged his arm out to get Maxey off. So the elbow didn't come out, but he put his whole like upper arm out and like elbowed him off of him. Which I'm pretty sure is still an offensive foul by letter of the law. And then, of course, promptly drills the three. So, like, that's the one everybody's going to remember. But there were other ones where Jaylen Brown was, like, running through Harden with his shoulder. Like, plays where, who was it? Marcus Smart was getting a bit, like, physical at times. Like,
I hate Marcus Smart.
Oh, my gosh.
Point being.
He is good. He is so good, too. And it's crazy. He's not even a superstar, but he's, like –
he's an A. Marcus Smart is one of those A+ role players. I despise the guy, but I appreciate what he does for his team. Look, I understand that some calls are going to go against you in every playoff game. But what really got at me was while there were a bunch of calls like that for us, there were like maybe one for the Celtics. And this was on our home court. You typically expect the home team to get the benefit of the doubt sometimes on those whistles. Man, imagine going to Boston. This next game in Boston, I'm going to be on the lookout for some of those whistles. Jeez. And they were ringing tonight. Imagine what they got to be in the Garden. But I don't know, gentlemen. Do you think I'm overreacting to some of these calls, or do you think I'm justified in this?
I mean, the ref ball has been an interesting thing this playoff. And I think it's just something as fans, for us as Sixers fans, if fans that a city is generally hated by most of the league, is, you know, kind of just isolated on its own, especially playing against one of the most popular basketball teams in history. I mean, I'm not going to like say that they're going to get calls, but the Celtics bring in ratings, the Lakers bring in ratings, the Knicks bring in ratings. That's just how it is, you know, and that's not going to change anything, you know? And so I think, yes, there were some horrible calls today, and I think we're going to expect those next game, if not worse next game. We can't put ourselves in a position where a bad call is causing us the game, you know? And that overtime where Embiid went up for that beautiful layup and they called charging on him when that was clearly on Marcus Smart.
That was brutal.
That stinks, but we should not have been in that position in overtime where we were down one with like 2 minutes to go, you know? And so, yes, those calls suck. We're going to see those in game 5 in game 6, and if there's game 7, we're going to see those calls regardless. What we have to do is we have to keep our mental game there, you know, and I think we did a pretty good job of that today. You know, PJ got a little annoyed, but that almost kind of worked in our favor, you know, getting people riled up. But yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible, some of the calls, but sadly that's just the state of the NBA now. And, you know, you got to play with it, you know?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, we did have a pretty big lead, so I'm not gonna like blame the refs too much on this game, but there was a lot of controversial calls when it comes to this whole series. Actually, like you said, the Embiid on the Marcus Smart, like that could have been a big play. That could have been a 3-point play instead of a 0-point play and an offensive foul. I mean, you had the one where Brown he already had 3 fouls in the first, pretty much like 5 minutes or whatever. And then you had the one where he ran into Harris. I mean, it could have went both ways. Granted, I'm not a ref. Maybe it's legal, but I mean, he really just like they both went up for the ball. Like it could have been easily called a foul. The Jason Tatum on Tyrese Maxey, that could have been a foul. That could have made my heart race a lot less than it was, obviously. But it really comes down to like you need to score no matter what. The refs aren't on your side or whatever. You need to make sure you're hitting your shots. I'm very happy that we're not getting too mad about the calls to where we're getting technicals on us.
I was worried PJ was going to get himself a tech on like one.
PJ has been. He's probably on the teetering edge of some refs in the NBA right now, and hopefully we don't see any of them this series. But they just got to keep their composure. Just whatever the refs do is really, really out of their control. Just play your game. Try to play as clean as you can, and just win, baby. Come on, just
win,
do this. Win. Come on, please.
Man,
win this series.
It's tied up, gentlemen. We go into Boston for Game 5, and it's going to be a war. But I think we've seen there's one benefit to even in Game 3 where we lost Game 3. We've seen we can hang with this team for a half, that we can play with this team and we can beat this team. This is no longer the like classic Sixers Celtics one where we maybe steal one off a lucky play and we know we're getting gentlemen swept. We know we can beat this team, whether that's on their home court or our home court.
Yep.
We know we have, we don't know we have. We know we have the potential for James Harden to be the clutch closer this team needs. Depends on which version of him we're getting that night. But there's a lot at stake.
Yeah.
Is it still looking bad for us? Should we still probably be big underdogs? Yes. But I think hope is more alive now than it was at the end of Game 3 where it was just terrible, awful, about as bad of a game as you could see. So here's hoping for Game 5. Obviously, we're on the road, but you got to hope you can take one there and bring it to a closeout game here in Philadelphia. You boys got anything you want to say before we kind of wrap up here? We're kind of tying everything together.
Man, go Sixers. I'm like too nervous to talk about the next game. I'm not ready for it yet.
We need a break.
Tuesday? When is
Tuesday, 7:30 Tuesday. Yeah.
10:30.
Come to fight.
7:30. Sorry. 7:30.
I'm
so you stay Arizona time.
I got you.
Yeah, I think we can win in Boston. We can win in Philly. It has nothing to do with where we're playing at. I think it just has to do with, how we adjust, how we play. And I think, like you said, Sanjay, after Game 3, we're doing a lot better than we were then, with the mental. And I think that if we can carry that into Tuesday, where we start off, battling in every single quarter, I don't care what the score is, how much we're down. If we battle every quarter, I think we'll come out on top, because you look at the stat line, it's so close. And this is a game where not even our bench, just anybody but 2 players got 40 points total. Like, could you imagine if, Maxey got 20, Tobias got 20, this would have been a blowout. Obviously Joel and Harden would have gone down a little bit, but the Celtics played their best. Everybody was playing out of their mind and they lost. So, if we just do what we need to do, I think we'll scrape a win again and then bring it back home in 6 or go back in 7 or beat them there. Doesn't matter. I think we can beat them Game 5, Game 6, and Game 7 if we need to.
Man, that's a bold take there, Nate, but here's hoping you're right, my guy. Everyone, thank you for tuning in. For everyone who's watching on the replay, we appreciate you too. Stay tuned in to Philly Insider Podcast as we continue down what is at the very least a emotionally, heavy series over here. Where the roller coaster is up, the roller coaster is down, and we're currently up. Let's try to stay up.
Yeah.
It's going everywhere, gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, comment, subscribe, all of that. Again, stay tuned. More Phillies coverage might be coming, by the way, as the Phillies are swinging into season. Stay tuned for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And here's hoping we can bring you guys some more Sixers content beyond the next 2 games. So, ladies and gentlemen, as always, have a good one. God bless y'all. Peace.
Catch you guys. Ring the bell.